can see all the stars as you walk along Hollywood Boulevard.
It's that time of the year again. While we won't be strolling on Hollywood Boulevard, we will be strolling along West Street and Main Street in Annapolis for the 11th Annual Annapolis Film Festival. From March 23rd to the 26th, you can enjoy more than 70 films, Q&A sessions with filmmakers, panels, coffee chats, and yes, plenty of parties.
I wish my life was a non-stop Hollywood movie.
Tickets and passes are on sale now at annapolisfilmfestival.org. But right now, we're going to give you a taste of things to come as we interview directors and producers of some of the hottest movies on the slate. Well, I'll tell you, I absolutely love when I get a chance to talk to a local filmmaker that is coming to the Annapolis Film Festival. And on the phone with us tonight is Vicky Bruce, who can't really get any more local than Annapolis. How are you today?
I'm great, John. Thanks. How are you?
Good. Well, I'll tell you, the Annapolis Film Festival, for those that have not heard yet, is March 23rd to the 26th right here in Annapolis. There are 5 different venues. You want to go to annapolisfilmfestival.org for your tickets and passes now, but don't buy tickets, buy passes if you want to see several different movies. That's the way to go. That's the way to experience the festival. And one of the first things I want to tell everybody is that Saturday, March 25th at noon at the Boys and Girls Clubs, that's where you need to be, because Vicky's movie is going to be premiering here in Annapolis, and it is called Las Abogadas. Did I get the name right?
You got it right.
Hey, look at that, man. Before we started recording, I'm going to come clean because I thought that it was a place. So I did some Googling before so I realized that it's not a place. But this is a really timely, concerning film, and the brief synopsis that I can come up with is that it is 4 women attorneys that have gone down to the border where we had the whole immigration quote unquote crisis coming from Mexico across the border into Texas to represent these people during the Trump administration, where the immigrants were not getting any care, any help. Basically, is that where, am I right?
Yeah, you're right. But it continues into the Biden administration, which they are continuing to suffer at the border. Things are even getting worse in some cases. So it's just the overall, we're failing on the immigration and the front. The laws haven't been written. There's no good policy in like 40 years in this country. So it's basically a mess. And I wanted to, instead of it being in this huge mess and having everybody look away, look at these 4 women and just watch what they're doing. And I think that was the reason that I made the film about the lawyers. So Las Abogadas means the lawyers. And, you really kind of see it from their point of view. And I think that it's a way to grab people into the conversation.
Well, how did this all come about? Okay, and these 4 women, were they based down in Texas, or did they come from all over, or?
So they come from different places. One of the women is, she's half Chinese, half German, first generation American. She was 20 years. She was an attorney in Virginia. And when Trump got elected, unlike a lot of people who said they would leave, she actually left and moved her family to Mexico, in a beautiful town in Mexico. And so she was the one that I was watching on Facebook because I knew her best friend lives here in Annapolis, Kristen Schrecker, who's our supervisory producer. And I watched her post about how she took her VW bus and drove out to meet the migrant caravan that, Trump was calling murderers and rapists and everything. And she went out there with one friend, and the 2 of them started giving legal advice to 5,000 people in the middle of Mexico. And I thought that was a phenomenal story. So she's one of the characters. Another one is a native of India and who's now an American attorney. Another is from Ethiopia. She works in Los Angeles on the border of Tijuana and San Diego. And then a third who's, this American woman in Texas who's just got her cowboy boots on and going out in the hot sun and giving legal advice to these desperate migrants.
Wow. And so how did it came about? Okay, if you're following her story on Facebook and wherever she's posting this, and did this just say, I need to be down there?
Well, I had retired from filmmaking because it's too hard. And I It's too hard to raise the money, I should say. I love filmmaking, but it's too hard to get paid and make a living. So I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm going to do corporate videos. I'm going to make money. And then I got invited to this film festival in Bosnia. And when I arrived, they all knew my previous work, and they were like, "What are you working on?" And I'd be like,
getting out,
like not wanting to admit it. Corporate videos gag me. And so as I was at that festival, I kept getting inspired by films from Syria and films about, just really important topics. And I just, all of a sudden, the story of Rebecca just like hit me like a lightning bolt. It was like, I have to make this film. I literally texted her as I was on the jury deliberating for the best film in that festival. I
said, my word.
I got to interview you when I get home.
Well, how many films have you made? I mean, I'll tell you, one of my favorite films, and I mean, I've seen a lot. I mean, maybe that's an exaggeration, but a film that I really, really like and enjoy is Pip and Zastro.
Oh, thank you.
And I mean, it's got the local angle and everything else. And I was fortunate enough to meet Zastro before he passed away. And I mean, he's every bit of a character that you depicted him and you didn't depict him. I mean, you just documented him in your documentary. But well, how many films have you made?
This is my fifth.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. I got to get on that IMDb and figure and check
I
it
do
out.
too. I got to update it.
Well, and are they all documentaries?
They're all documentaries. Yeah. I haven't crossed over to the dark side yet, but I have an idea for a film. Maybe you'll see me do a feature one day.
Okay. Well, I mean, at heart, and a little bit of, the Annapolis lore coming in here, but I mean, at heart, you're an activist.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You think? And,
you caught me, Don. You caught me.
Sorry. Man, I didn't mean to out you quite like that, Vicky. But
don't tell anyone.
Right. But I mean, is that pretty much what has driven you to develop 5 documentaries?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think it's, every documentarian, well, I guess not everyone, but most of us are doing something and telling a story that we think is important for people to take action on, So the Pip and Zastro story was, it came about because when I moved to Annapolis from the West Coast, I was instantly shocked by the separation of Black communities and white communities and the racism and the socioeconomic differences between people of different colors. And it was just, it happens everywhere in America, but it's especially startling here to me. And,
well, I think it's very startling when you consider how big or how not big Annapolis is. Mm-hmm. I can sit there and say, okay, in a city of 8 million people in New York, oh yeah. LA, I don't know what their population is, maybe 6 million. Oh yeah, I can see that. 38,000. It was probably 32,000 when Pip and Zastro, or even 30 less than that. Yeah, it's pretty striking.
It is striking, and I didn't feel comfortable. I remember going to parties where, when I started making the film, I didn't know any Black people in Annapolis because they didn't hang out in the same circles. And I'd say, oh, I'm going to make this film about, the racism here and this Black guy and this white guy. And like you could hear a pin drop. Like no one would even talk about it.
Didn't get invited back to that party again, did you?
And I have to say that then Obama got elected. A lot of white people were like, oh, racism's over now. And during that time, we're making the film. That was really cool. Zastro was like, actually, like, full disclosure, Zastro was Hillary. I was Obama back in 2008. We used to fight about it all the time. And so, that was going on, and, the world, things are, different a little bit. And, but that film, I really, really wanted to bring it to schools in the Anne Arundel County. And although it didn't, it's played at some schools, but I wanted it to be curriculum because I feel like, in this case, you need to be in junior high, elementary school. These lessons need to be learned. High school, too late. And they'd see the film and they said, oh, well, it has domestic violence and this and that. So I mean, there are parts they should have done it. They should have made a curriculum about it. They still should. So if anybody out there is listening and writes curriculum for the school district around here, this is an important story that has not been solved, fixed, overcome.
Maybe we'll send Dr. Bedell a link to the movie.
Actually, you know what? That is a good idea. That is a really good idea, because there may be an opening.
He's shaking things up. He definitely is shaking things up. So, but you had mentioned that down here on the border that this I mean, obviously we know what happened with President Trump's term, and it was just a hot mess. But you're saying that it still continued into President Biden's term, and it still is as much of a hot mess right now?
Yeah. And I mean, the reason that you're asking me that question is because the media now ignores it as much as possible. And it's just as bad as it was during Trump. And Biden is actually introducing some of Trump's policies back in that are more harmful to migrants that were actually struck down by the courts. There have been some gains, but overall, no, things are bad, and they continue to be bad. And everywhere else in the world, when you have this huge humanitarian crisis, you have the Red Cross and you have the UN. I mean, like, we're pretending it doesn't exist, and which is completely unfair, So this film is supposed now. I'm trying to bring attention to that, right? That's a big thing. We'll be in Annapolis. We'll be in DC. And hopefully get lawmakers involved. I have to say, Chris Van Hollen his office has been really responsive. During the filmmaking, I helped get about 7 Cameroonians into the U.S. And
oh, wow.
his office was instrumental and super helpful. And I know, we have a lot of good lawmakers in Maryland, but like, if you don't, it's like a snooze issue in Washington.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, pass it on. It's only been 40 years. Why create good policy now?
Las Abogadas, again, the Annapolis Film Festival, March 25th, noon at the Boys and Girls Clubs. But I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the festival, because you've been on the festival circuit with this film, right?
I have.
It's won plenty of awards at other festivals. And as a director, what do you hope to get out of any festival that you go to? What are you looking to see from the audience and the experience of being there? I mean, I know what we want to see when we sit down and put our butt in the seat and watch the film. What do you want to see?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and it's almost a question that filmmakers have to have a reckoning with these days, because it's going on a film circuit to film festivals is expensive, and you're doing it on a shoestring budget usually if you're a filmmaker. And so when we come to these festivals as filmmakers, the things that we're hoping to get for our film is exposure, right? So what you're doing for me now is super helpful. I'm like, listen to Vicky. She was on, Eye on Annapolis, and, the exposure, getting the word out there is super important. It's, meeting people that could possibly fund your next film. I mean, I'm retired, so I'm not doing that, but, they're things that filmmakers look for. And then, connecting and putting it in front of audiences, that's the icing on the cake, right?
Right.
So that's the reason we sit in dark rooms and edit films for no money and lots of time.
Well, it's so funny. I mean, the film industry has changed just as the music industry has. I mean, we've gone from 78s to 45s to 33s or LPs to CDs. I guess we had 8 tracks and everything else in there. Films have done it now. I know that there are some bands that actually play to hopefully make songs to hopefully be scored in a film or a television show. When a filmmaker is making a film, I mean, are you eyeing up a specific size screen? Okay, I want this on the big screen in a theater, or I'm cool with a Netflix distribution where it's going to be watched at home, or a YouTube thing where the kids are going to, are you eyeing the different endpoints, I guess, of a film, which didn't exist 20 years ago, 25 years ago?
Yeah, I would say that's definitely in the thought process while you're making the film. At the budgets where most documentaries are, they will only see the streaming screen, right? I have a distributor that will hopefully get me on television in some countries, possibly the US, on cable. But, I think the way that films get in theaters when they're as small as ours is that you pay money to put your film in theaters in the hopes that you will get an Academy Award nomination. It's all kind of a system. And I tend to stay out of that because I'm usually like on to the next thing by the time my film's out. Okay. And I don't have a lot of desire to be a filmmaker anyway. I don't know why I keep doing it, but I've never thought this would be great for my career, which apparently I should have, because I'm 56 now and, I'll die relatively unknown. But anyway, somebody will listen to this in the future and remember me.
Well, you know what? Here's your tip on this. When you misnamed this, you should have called it the Fablemans. And they would have been here in droves. But where can we learn more about you and your work? I mean, if we've got folks here that are listening that have a corporate need for video and stuff like that, is there a place where we can learn more about you and connect with you?
Yeah, actually my site, and I do a lot of work in DC and here, is boomboommedia.com. And we have great videographer who I work with, Simon Afokwa. Yasmin Jameson does producing for me. And so, we're hometown and we do all kinds of stuff. Laura Seltzer-Dunai is local as well. She was a producer of Las Abogadas, and she's a great video producer and director.
If we aren't able to catch the screening of it here in Annapolis, where are we going to be able to see this film moving on?
So we are part of I'm not even allowed to say. We'll be at the E Street Cinema in April, and that'll be on April 26th or 27th. We will be announcing that soon. And then pretty soon, I think we plan on doing a fall screening again at Maryland Hall, maybe. We've talked to them because I know there's going to be a lot of interest. So we will keep bringing it back here. And then eventually, of course, it'll be on all the streaming services.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I am excited to see the film. Again, this is Las Abogadas. It's going to be premiering here in Annapolis on March 25th at noon at the Boys and Girls Club. And I was talking to Lee and Patty, and they've got a big 30-foot screen, and that's going to be actually it's a new venue to be seeing films, and it sounds like it's going to be pretty impressive there.
We are going to have an after event that will be a fundraiser for the Center of Help, which is the migrant center in Annapolis that helps with migrants and Spanish-speaking population in town, and we're going to raise money for them. And so we'll look for that on all kinds of Facebook. That'll be right after our screening at the Bates Center at the Boys and Girls Club.
Okay, and I'm assuming you're going to be doing a Q&A after the screening. I mean, you're local,
Definitely.
You're here,
and we will have special guests that are actually in the film.
AnnapolisFilmFestival.org is where everyone wants to go to get your passes and tickets. Passes are great because if you get to a sold-out show, you can quick go to another one and get right in without having to exchange tickets and all of that kind of stuff. If you're only able to make one or two movies through the weekend, tickets might be the way to go, but passes are probably the way to go if you're into films and you're going to watch more than probably 3 or 4 over the weekend. That's just my pro tip that's going out to everybody. But Vicky Bruce, thank you for producing this important film. Thank you for being here in Annapolis and going to come in and talk about it. And I can't wait to see it on 25th at noon at the Boys and Girls Club, Las Abogadas.
Thanks, John, and thanks for helping promote all these good filmmakers and films and this great festival.
You can see on the stars as you walk along Hollywood Boulevard.
Remember, passes and tickets for the Annapolis Film Festival are available right now at AnnapolisFilmFestival.org. I've got mine. Now you need to go get yours, and I'll see you at the movies.